Am I the a-hole boarding the plane and leaving without my wife? I am not the oop. Oop is you, Angai 1284. Am I the $a hole boarding the plane and leaving without my wife? Originally posted to R2 Hot Takes. Trigger warning. Death of a parent and death of a spouse. Less than. Special thanks to PETA Enigma for bringing this to the BoRU Discord. Original post September 1st, 2023. Sorry ahead of time for the length of this one, but there is a lot of key details I think are important. I know how this sounds, but hear me out. This is also not my usual account, but I don't want to risk my wife seeing this, as it is currently a sensitive subject. My wife, female 43, and I, male 47, have a daughter, female 21, who goes to college out of state. We will call my wife Meg and my daughter Jess. Jess is in her junior year of college. Over the summer she was employed by her university and was able to stay in the dorms after summer. She was moving out of the dorms and into her own apartment off campus. Meg and I live in the PNW. Jess goes to school on the East Coast. We usually go to visit Jess a couple times throughout the semester. Typically parents' weekend and move-out day. She also comes home during the holidays. Let me start by saying that traveling with my wife is not a great experience. I am very type A. I like to have everything organized and make sure that we get where we need to be early. Especially when traveling. My wife is the opposite. Very go with the flow, and we will get there when we get there. I do my best to meet in the middle, but not when traveling by plane. Last year, during Parents' Weekend, Meg and I were going to fly out to see Jess. Our flight was at 10 a.m. Our airport isn't huge, but not a tiny airport either. I told my wife that we needed to be at the airport 90 minutes early. And we live about 30 minutes for the airports. This being said, I wanted to leave at the very latest by 8. Since we would also need to park and walk a little bit. I of course got up at 6. To make sure everything was ready and accounted for. My wife does not like to get up early. It took me attempting to wake her up 5 times before she eventually got up at 7:40, then wanted to make coffee, shower, and eat a bowl of cereal. Let's just say that we didn't leave the house until 9. It ended up being busier at the airport than normal, likely due to many colleges having Parents' Weekend, and it took so long to get through security that we missed our flight. Rightly so. The airline refused to refund our ticket. We were able to get new tickets but not until the next day and missed Friday afternoon and Saturday morning with our daughter. Jess was disappointed to say the least. Fast forward to now. We were flying down for a long weekend to help her move. We take one flight from our town to a bigger town nearby. Then fly from there to my daughter's college town. Again, it was a long morning of me pushing my wife, getting her to move along. Due to the last airport mishap, I wanted to make sure I told her we needed to leave extra early as to not miss the flight again. We got there on time, with a bit of time to spare. And my wife was annoyed. Kept going on about how now we just have to sit and wait for 45 minutes for them to start boarding. We took our first flight and landed in the connecting city, at a much larger airport. We only had about 1 hour layover. We got off the plane at 9:15 and our next plane started boarding at 9:40. We had to take multiple rails to get from where we landed to our terminal. We got to our terminal and had about 15 minutes until our plane was set to board. My wife tells me that she wants to get coffee. There was a little market next to our terminal that sold hot food and coffee. I asked if she wanted me to go grab it for her. No, I want Starbucks, she said. Well, Starbucks we a rail ride away. And a little bit of a walk. I told her we couldn't do that. We didn't have enough time. She stated that we had enough time and if I wouldn't go with her she would go by herself. I tried to discourage her but she was determined. She walked away, at a brisk pace for her, and said she would be back in time. 15 minutes went by and she was nowhere to be seen. They started calling boarding groups. I called my wife hoping she was nearby. She didn't answer. They called a few groups, then called ours. In a panic I called my wife again, 3 times. Finally on the last call she answered and said she was on her way. It was a long line and she had to wait a bit. I told her they were almost done with boarding and she needed to hurry up. I waited by the gate but the attendant said they would need to shut the gate in 2 minutes. I waited and waited, but she didn't show up. The attendant asked if I wanted to board. Otherwise she was closing the gate. I tried to plead with her to wait a couple of minutes but she insisted that she couldn't. So, I boarded the plane. A few minutes later my wife calls me saying that the attendant won't let her on. They had already removed the boarding ramp at that point. She told me I needed to tell them to let me off the plane to be with her and I said no. It is not fair to do this again to Jess. I said I told you we didn't have time but you decided to go anyways. I told her to go purchase a new ticket for the next flight and I would see her when she arrives. She got to Jess's school and seemed unbothered by the whole situation. Didn't even really talk about it. I thought maybe she realized it was her fault and just wanted to drop it. Boy was I wrong. We are now home and she hasn't talked to me since the trip. Over a week ago. And is insisting that I am an asshole. So, am I the asshole? Update. Wow. I know a lot of people say this but I really didn't think this would get as big as it did. Thanks everyone for the responses. I have been trying to read them in batches when I have time. Because I have been getting some good suggestions. I wanted to answer a couple questions I saw as well as add a bit of extra info. For those who are outside of USA, PNW is Pacific Northwest. As far as how she acts in other situations, she generally doesn't have any issues. She is never one to be late to work or anything like that. Or just seems like travel is her poor area. I never noticed things like this until we started traveling often to see our daughter. This is why I never considered ADD, ADHD. She really shows no other signs of this. I saw posts implying that my wife might have an addiction of some sort. I'm not sure how that would line up but I don't see that being a possibility. I didn't think the following information was important. But my daughter made a comment. And so did a friend that I discussed this with. So I thought maybe I would mention it here. Jess is not Meg's daughter. I was married one before and my wife unfortunately passed away due to complications during Jess's birth. I remarried Meg when my daughter was 6. My daughter made a comment that Meg doesn't like one to come to see, help her and that is why she is always running late. But I have offered to go alone and Meg was always very against that idea so I wouldn't think that is the case. Update 2 posted in comments. Wouldn't allow me to add any more info here. Kept giving me an error. Relevant comment from Oop. Comment here same day. I can't say that Meg and Jess have had the easiest relationship. Meg always wanted to have another child but we were unable to conceive. She did make comments that she wanted children of her own and that caused a little riff in our relationship at the time because I wanted her to see Jess as her daughter. But they really never had the typical mother-daughter relationship. It was always very much pushed that Jess was my daughter. Meg did make comments about being excited to have an empty nest. But I assumed this was just because we would have more room. Jess is a great kid and really never says anything bad about anyone. But she had made comments before stating that she thinks Meg is jealous of her. But this never made sense to me. She has also told me that she doesn't want Meg to come to her school for Parents' Weekend as she would rather spend it just with me. Or wait for Father's Weekend. But Meg always says she wants to go and I have never gone without her. This being said, I have never seen any negativity directed at Jess from Meg. Or resentment. Maybe I am missing something? UpDated in the comments. Update September 6, 2023. Update. Hi everyone. Thanks again for all the advice. I read as many of the comments as I could and took in all the information. I wanted to provide an update. My wife finally started talking to me again. When she did, I told her that I wanted to have a conversation about the situation. But I wanted to give it a couple of days for emotions to settle down. Some of the comments here gave me a great idea and I wanted to see what she thought about it. For all future trips I will have my tickets. She will have hers. I typically drive to the airport and leave my car in one of the paylots. So I would drive myself and she could Uber. She will have all the freedom she wants to do what she wants, but it is up to her to arrive on time and board the plane. I let her know that it was starting to feel like I needed to keep track of both of us. I phrased it in a way to make it sound like I didn't want to be controlling over her and let her manage her own time. She wasn't happy with this, but she reluctantly agreed. Now to get to the bigger issue that I didn't realize we had until reading the comments of this post. Call me oblivious, but I really never thought there was any issue between Meg and Jess. After talking to my wife, she wouldn't admit to any issues, and stated that she would never intentionally delay a flight so that we couldn't see our daughter, and acted offended that I would ask such a thing. If that was her actual purpose, I don't think I would be able to prove it, but it will be at the forefront of my mind in the future. After talking to Meg and Jess, we decided on the following. Meg and I will be visiting Jess on Parents' Weekend, but I will be attending Father's Weekend from now on, and I will be attending by myself to get some alone time with Jess. Jess seemed very excited and surprisingly Meg didn't seem to have an issue with that this time. Thanks again to everyone who took the time to read and give me advice. I really appreciate everything and I hope these steps can work towards a resolution for the issues. This is a repost sub IAM, not the OOP. God, this would drive me crazy. I predict the problem will persist and the wife will find some way to blame her husband because she clearly has issues taking accountability for her actions. I didn't think the following information was important, oh boy. As someone who arrives several hours early to any flight, this kind of behavior is genuinely bewildering. If you're not spending an hour dawdling at the gate before boarding commences, you're asking for trouble. Tears of joy, tears of joy, tears of joy. The fact that she thought that she could conceivably get in and out of an airport Starbucks in 15 minutes, and it wasn't even located next to their departure gate, is legit insane. I can't even get out of the Starbucks by my job in 15 minutes and I always order ahead in the app. I wouldn't even bother with an airport Starbucks unless I had a 2-hour layover. That's how paranoid I am about missing my flight. In my experience, someone who is truly go with the flow shrugs off things like being able to get the special coffee they want because they don't have time. And if they do miss a flight, they go, "Oh bummer," and adapt to the new situation without blaming other people and just figure out next steps. This isn't someone being laid back. This is someone being inconsiderate of others' people's time and emotions and then being emotionally manipulative when called out. This wasn't fair to the husband or daughter. And the silent treatment is not okay. I know people complain that Redditors are too quick to say end the relationship. But I, personally, could not cope with this. This had to have come up while they were dating. And in OOP's case, I wouldn't let it proceed to something more permanent. I felt stressed just reading about his wife getting Starbucks. I am so flight anxious. I cannot imagine being at the gate and having 15 minutes to board and then deciding to leave the terminal. I have ADHD, and my brain cannot comprehend this. It was not like she lost track of time. She chose to leave. I agree with Oop that Meg isn't trying to intentionally make them late. She just doesn't consider seeing Jess to be a priority. Also, wow. Posts from people in a different tax bracket than me. If I missed a flight and had to buy a new ticket, day of my bills would be absolutely fucked. I have a feeling this isn't concluded. Wife resents daughter. Since she couldn't have her own. Wife is excited to be an empty nester. What happens when daughter gets married and has grandkids? I hope Oop manages to make it work. But wife is the problem here. Not her kid. She pushes it's not her kid. Angry she couldn't have kids. Late to only things involving his kid. Won't let him see his kid alone. Dude. Really? 12 or so years and you haven't figured out your wife is toxic to your kid and shows her how unwanted she is. Gotta say, wifey is painted in great light here. Comes across as really likable and willing to accept when she's wrong. Or, you know, the exact opposite of what I've said here. This is a gender-bent version of Roald Dahl's The Way Up to Heaven, and I will not stop pointing it out. If you haven't read it, do. It's a great short story. I'm not surprised that people tried to find justifications for the wife. But come on. Oop says that she only acts like this when they visit the daughter. Even without the info that she's not biologically hers. It's kind of obvious what she's doing. Even if she's not doing it on purpose. I love the new arrangement. That way she can't blame Oop if she misses the flight. And she can't also complain about him being controlling. Now to get to the bigger issue that I didn't realize we had until reading the comments of this post. Call me oblivious. But I really never thought there was any issue between Meg and Jess. He said he had ignored the daughter's comment because he did not understand. So he did know. He just didn't care enough or wanted to care enough because it was easier. If the daughter has said it many times, he is not oblivious. He is negligent. I'm not saying the wife is doing it on purpose. She just doesn't care. I am not sure how your partner who you supposedly raised your daughter from childhood with saying they want kids of their own counts as a little riff. Oop seems either dangerously oblivious or in full-blown denial. That would be ground for a breakup for me. Thank God this got updated. I remembered being so pissed on this guy's behalf. Oop is still oblivious about the dynamic between his wife and daughter. Daughter may have kept a lot of comments to herself about her relationship with Meg to avoid rocking the boat. Right now, Meg is relenting to have him go on his own, but only because she's realizing that Jess is becoming an adult and she's discerning things a lot more about stepmother. Oop been so hell-bent to find a new mommy for his daughter that he's been oblivious to the fact that his wife doesn't like his daughter and is probably bitter at the fact that she can't have kids of her own. I hate that Oop's still trying to force his wife on his daughter after she made it clear she didn't want her there. Nope. The mental state isn't an excuse. She's a huge asshole in my books. You agree to meet an obligation, then you meet it. She could have said she just doesn't want to go if it's not a priority to her. OOP's wife is just a jackass on the waste of money alone. Wonder what else she doesn't support her husband in if she doesn't even care about his relationship with his daughter. Wow, Oop really is oblivious. His daughter that doesn't talk badly about anyone, talks bad about his wife. Her stepmom that's raised her for most of her childhood. He needs to figure why she thinks badly of her. And if he really is this obvious, then I bet the wife has made him miss spending time with his daughter in situations similar to this. And he noticed the signs again and got fed up. It's obvious that the daughter and wife have a bad relationship. And Oop needs to figure out how he missed it and get his head out of the clouds.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Heracast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.